Morena, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here at my first Braid conference. Usually the rest of my team are here telling tales about the work we do. And I've got this great talk about kāhu and what they do on Braided Rivers. So we've been lucky enough to work on the Waitoa for a very long time. So we've been monitoring black-fronted terns since 2012, and the Waitoa Clarence River and the Akron. And it's an amazing river, not quite as big and as wide as some of the other Canterbury rivers, but still a pretty fascinating place to work. And like I said, the species we've been monitoring for this period of time is the black-fronted tern. It's an endemic, it's nationally endangered. It's about between, depending on who you talk to, 1,000 to 5,000 mature individuals. And sadly, it's predicted that it's going to decline by 50% over the next 3 decades. The amazing thing is 60% of these birds live and breed on Canterbury Braided Rivers. So the Canterbury system is amazingly important for this species. In the non-breeding season, they migrate across New Zealand and even as far as Miranda and things that have been recorded up there in scattered numbers, but generally in the Bay of Plenty and Wellington region, even out to Farewell Spit. And look out for banded birds and flagged birds if you are in those areas, because we've banded and flagged a few of them, and it's really important to get those re-sightings. Of course, not only on the rivers and the water quality are they under threat, but there's a whole heap of other things that threaten these guys. Massive number of mammalian predators, and of course the avian predators, including southern blackbacks. Of course, like you were saying, we've got our human interference with people driving over them and walking over them and putting their dogs into them. Climate change with the change of rivers and how things are affecting that way. Gravel extraction, particularly in our rivers. And weeds. So terns don't like it when the rivers get full of weeds. They don't like nesting in those sites. So of course, one of the problems is we've got kāhu, which are native, non-threatened, and in relatively high numbers. And then we've got our endemic, not, highly endangered. And how do we balance this? What can we do about kāhu when they're impacting on these? Because kāhu are also incredibly lovely. But we do know that they are highly predatory on our terns. Over our nearly 12 years of monitoring these birds, of the black-fronted terns, we've got plenty of evidence on our trail cameras that kāhu are eating tern eggs and chicks. Lots of lovely pictures of them picking up eggs and eating them, swallowing chicks whole and taking them away. And they also get dive bombed by the parents and cause disturbance. And the parents do try and take them on, but of course, as you can imagine, they're pretty small next to these guys. And we've got plenty of video of them doing all sorts of things to the birds, eggs and chicks. And these were all supposed to play at the same time, but obviously not going to. But yeah, plenty of evidence that these guys do predate birds. So part of this work has been that we're doing a treatment and a non-treatment area, splitting the colonies up. So we're now doing a lot of invasive species trapping. So putting out a lot of dock traps for ferrets, for weasels, for stoats, for feral cats, and for everything else that could possibly impact on them. But part of our trapping, we used to run leg hold traps specifically to target feral cats. They're one of the most effective trapping systems for targeting cats. So we used to do sort of 10-day stints just targeting those feral cats. But unfortunately, kāhu are very significant bycatch on those trap systems. And because they're culturally important to the Kaikoura runanga, we had this discussion about what are we going to do about this bycatch level. We didn't really want to catch heaps of kāhu, although they are a massive predator on terns, because it was upsetting for the runanga. And so we wanted to understand what is actually the impact of kāhu. Is it a learned behaviour from 1 or 2 individuals who are just keying into the terns and then they're going to cause all the trouble? Or is it a population event and that all kāhu eat terns? Because if we found out that there was a few individuals, maybe we could just remove those individuals from the population, and then we wouldn't have that kāhu predation. Or is it going to be a population issue? And then the other question is how many kāhu are actually in the area? We had no understanding of how many birds are actually there. So we decided we'd start so far we've done 3 years, and we're hoping to do lots more, of kāhu work specifically, to understand the extent of the nest predation. So we monitor them with our black-fronted tern population, but we just wanted to see if it is one individual or two. Understand the population status of kāhu in the river area to see if there's lots and lots of birds, so can sustain some culling if we have to. And then understand the movement of kāhu. Is this birds that are resident in the area, or are they coming in from somewhere else? So like I said, for the last 3 years, we've been putting out funnel cage traps along the Waiatoa. And so basically we've covered all that area in red with putting out traps. So this is our trap sites. And if they weren't catching many birds, we did move them. So that's why some of them are labelled A's and B's, because there was a better location slightly on. And the stars just where St James is, which is a little homestead where we all camped during this time. So a lot of driving up and down the river and checking all these traps. So if people are wondering what a funnel trap is, it's a pretty big square box netted together, and you put a piece of rabbit or possum in underneath, and there's a funnel in the end. And the kāhu goes in to get the bait, because of course they're great scavengers, and then they can't work out how to get back out. And you can catch more than one bird in a cage. The most we've ever had is 5, and they all sit there patiently waiting to be get out. But generally it's 1 or 2, and we are checking these traps constantly all day, driving up and down the road. So they're not left in there very long. And we just set them in the morning and close them at night. And it is very interesting trying to get them out. This is not a kāhu wound. And once we catch them, we're individually banding them. So they get an individually numbered davik. So we're using the white ones with the black numbers. And they've also got a metal band, which is also individually numbered. We're also sexing, weighing, and checking a molt score on each of them, and aging them, of course. So they're pretty amazing birds in the hand. They are incredibly docile. You wouldn't think so, but they won't attack and peck you. You just have to watch out for the claws and things. And it's an amazing thing to do with children, because even as young as 4 or 5 can hold them and let them go. So they're a pretty amazing thing for advocacy to teach people. And it's been great with the Runanga having people come and help. Now this table is specifically for Frances. She loves data. And of course, it's that dreaded table that nobody has time to read, and it's how many birds have we caught and this sort of thing. So we've made it much easier. We caught it, in the last 3 years, we've caught 103 kāhu, so we've banded that many. And we've also caught, at the same time, 30 of those have been constantly recaptured in things. Some of them, one bird 5 times, he just loves being caught. So every time you go to the same thing, he's in there again. Sometimes he gets a friend, which is helpful, but he really likes the cages, or he's just really greedy. 41 of them were first years, 27 are second years, and 35 are third years, or 3-year plus, so adults getting onto that age. And a little more females than males. And just another way, so the first year, second year, third year. So interestingly, there's that little drop in the second years. And again, it's a part of the questions, where do these second years go? We're not quite sure. Do they decide not to get into the traps at that point? Have they gone outside the region? It's another question that we're keen to answer. So interestingly, between 2012 and 2022, kāhu predation was the largest observed on the black-fronted tern nests. So they were scoffing the eggs and chicks down. But in the last 2 seasons we've been monitoring, we haven't actually recorded any kāhu predation at all on the nests. Now that doesn't mean there wasn't any, because even we don't monitor all our nests with cameras. And some of the cameras that we do have nests, the coverage wasn't complete. So we don't know if it was just not picked up. And of course, interestingly, there's been some 1080 control programs done in the region over that period of time, which has really complicated both our tern data, but as well as our kāhu data. So it may have caused bykill of kāhu because of that. And we know we have caught or recovered one carcass of a kāhu that we know was killed by 1080 through secondary poisoning. So there's a possibility that kāhu numbers have declined because of that control program. And with all our 103 birds banded in the region, we haven't actually seen one of them on our cameras that we're using across the river yet. But that's not to say we haven't had any banded birds on camera. So part of this year's work, we did some pre-season residual predator monitoring using cameras. So that's just understanding what the predator numbers are before the trapping program kicks in. And this guy, number 180, keyed into the bait and visited, I think, 6 or 7 of our camera sites. So he's both greedy and likes being paparazzi'd. So this is just 2 of the shots of him visiting 2 of the cameras. He was very annoying because he learned how to pull the baits out, so it wasn't very helpful for the rest of our predator monitoring. And unfortunately, we haven't been tracking our birds, and we'd really, really like to, and so hopefully Emma's going to save our day later and give us some tracking devices. But we have had 3 dead kāhu recovered. Interesting still, we've been doing the banding down where the yellow dot is, which is the St James homestead. One of our birds was found recovered dead at the Akron shelter, so 13 kilometres away from its banding site. But one was also recovered as roadkill, so it got hit by a car just outside of Culverden, so about 35 kilometres from where it was banded. So it's definitely moved outside of the Waitoa. And interestingly, our whānau do a lot of banding of kāhu in Marlborough. So my brothers are definitely kāhu freaks, they love them. And yeah, they've caught hundreds in Marlborough. And one of their birds was recovered at the Akron shelter. So that's the distance of 130 kilometres. The frustrating thing is we have no idea how it gets there. Does it go around the coast? Does it fly over the mountain range? Do we have more Marlborough birds down this way? And so what we're saying to people is band lots, and put lots of darviks on. This would be great to know if birds move much wider. And we're really excited to be able to do some tracking, hopefully this season. So it's pretty amazing data, just very early days. So like I said, we've done this for 3 years and we haven't answered any questions. We've just come up with a hell of a lot more, really. So what we really need to do is continually band kāhu because it's coming up with some really interesting information and it's a really good start. We'd like to see banding of kāhu done in other locations and particularly putting on darviks, and we know Nelson is doing some in their region, and we're hoping some Wellington guys will be doing some with different colours, and also some Canterbury guys doing some more with different coloured darviks, so we can all look out for others. Of course, we need to do an increased resighting effort, because what's the point of banding these birds if we don't actually try and see them? Because we do actually need to have a look around. Of course, we need to keep monitoring black-fronted tern in the rivers, both in our rivers, but everybody else's in Canterbury as well. And we want to do a heap of tracking of kāhu because it's pretty exciting where they are going and looks like they could do some pretty amazing movements. And this is an amazing project. It's collaborative with a whole part of the black-fronted tern work in the Waitoa with ECAN and DOC and the Runanga, and Lynn's helping support with funding and things as well. And it's pretty amazing fun. So if anybody wants to band kāhu, you should come and join us in Marlborough and come and join us in the Waitoa because it's awesome. So yeah, any questions? Yeah, it is, unfortunately. Yeah, and particularly scavengers like kāhu. So yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, this year the predator results for our terns was kāhu didn't apparently do any, but blackback gulls just wiped out some of our colonies. Yeah.
What's the oldest bird you've seen? Like resightings of your 3+ birds?
So for us, the ages, but Mike's banding, so we have no knowledge of the ones in the Waitoa. So of course, they could be 4 or 5, but some of Mike's banding in Marlborough, the oldest bird, I think, has been 8 or 9. So yeah, still quite old. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is what we'd like to see, and we're hoping that part of Birds New Zealand projects will sort of develop that. So that's been that conversation with Canterbury and Nelson and Marlborough, at least starting their phase of the kāhu banding. So yeah, really exciting. Yes, it could be. And the main reason we're doing this research is to be able to open up that conversation with, with all the relevant information for runanga, so that we can either justify a legitimate management decision and get them to have that conversation and understand the level that they need to know to be able to make that sort of decision, basically. So it's basically just to get that information gathered. No, we haven't really, but we haven't made an effort for that. We have recorded a kāhu nest in the Waitoa right next to, and they nest right on the top of vegetation in a big open nest, and it's really amazing. And they would be relatively easy to do, but we haven't had the funds or anything to be able to do that. It'd be great for somebody to do it as a project. They're amazing species to work with. Yeah, great lot for a student who wants to do a cool PhD.